Well, hello. My name is Dr. Paul Antonellis, and I am currently the Director of Institutional Planning and Assessment at Endicott College. And today I'm going to be speaking on program reviews, external program reviews, and in my role as a assessment person on campus, being a coach, mentor, and director, and balancing those wants and needs with the community. So a little bit about myself. I hold a doctorate degree in education, and I have a master's degree in labor and policy studies. I came to Endicott about 2 years ago as the director of assessment for the graduate and doctoral programs, and then because of a reorganization, my position was shifted, and I'll talk more about that. I also serve on the board of directors for the New England Educational Assessment Network, which is comprised of the New England states and beyond, dealing with assessment and colleagues, and we hold sessions throughout the year, professional development. I served previously as an assistant professor of management at Merrimack College. I served as a term faculty for over 7 years. And prior to that, I served as the director of the business program for Granite State College up in the state of New Hampshire. I've taught more than 100 undergrad and graduate courses over the past 15 years. In my prior life, I was actually a fire chief. I was a career firefighter and retired out at the rank of chief, and essentially was a stay-at-home dad. With my kids growing up, my wife said I needed to go back to work. So I ended up pursuing my doctorate degree and going into higher ed. And that's what kind of brings me here today. So learning outcomes to discuss, we're going to talk about creating a program of assessment, working as a coach, a mentor, director, a Jedi, and also working within a shared governance plan. Here at Endicott College, my full-time faculty are unionized, and so I need to work within a collective bargaining agreement when it comes to assessment. And so we'll talk about that process, the strengths and the weaknesses of a shared governance process, and the lessons learned working with new deans and department chairs and faculty during an external review process. So with that being said, what I'd like to have is, there's only a handful of you in the session right now. If you want to unmute yourself and just quickly say who you are and what role you play, so that I can maybe make sure that we're hitting the target audience. So if you want to unmute yourself, please take a minute.
Hi, this is Melissa Dedman from Truckee Meadows Community College, and I'm the Associate Dean over the Assessment and Planning Office here.
Awesome, welcome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Hiju Jang. I am a research analyst at College of San Mateo, actually in IR office.
All right, welcome.
Hey everybody, my name is Callie Holloway. I'm the Director of Academic Assessment at the Air Force Academy.
Welcome, Callie.
Megan Holden, the Associate Director of Assessment Services at Park University.
Awesome, great. All right. So a little bit about Endicott College. We're located in Massachusetts. We're just outside of Boston on the North Shore. We sit, as you can see from the photo, right on the water. We have several quote unquote dorms, which are former homes that serve as dorms for our upperclassmen. I'm not sure about you, but that's where I want to be when I'm a senior here at this college. But we do sit right on the water. We have 42 undergraduate majors, 24 master's programs. We have now 4 doctoral programs, and we predominantly are housed in Beverly, Massachusetts, but we do have locations in remote locations in downtown Boston, and we also serve the online aspect, and we also have a partnership with Madrid, Spain. And so I'm currently right now doing an external program review in our business school, and that business school, it's not just here, but it's also Madrid, Spain, because they use our curriculum and we award the degrees. So we're interfacing with them, and then the professional studies. Our total enrollment's a little over 5,000. We have about 112 full-time faculty. We rely, like many other higher ed institutions, we rely heavily on our part-time faculty, our adjunct faculty. And our average class size is 16.5. So we actually pride ourselves on the fact that we have small classroom sizes, and that we also require our students to have 3 internships before they graduate. And so we have a very robust internship program. We sit on about a 235-acre parcel of land. I've only been here roughly 2 years, and I've already seen 2 additional levels added to the parking garage. They just broke ground on a new nursing building. And so there's a lot of growth going on here on this particular campus. So that's a little bit about who Endicott College is. So in what I'll base this on is I've been here, like I said, for 2 years, and I came in at the graduate level to do assessment, and then we went through a reorganization, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But in that reorganization, I went from just the grad program to institutional assessment, and then we ended up another reorganization, and I became the director of institutional planning and assessment. And so I'm responsible for curricula and co-curricula assessment for the college. Previously, I had a 2-2 course load, meaning I would teach 2 courses in the spring and the fall. Under my new position, I actually fought to retain 1, so I get to teach 1 class per year, just so that I can stay in the classroom. And our professional studies, the Van Loan, previously was a separate school in itself, and they offered different programs through professional studies, our adult learners, untraditional students or non-traditional students. Generally, it's housed with adjunct faculty. It does have 3 full-time executive director and 2 directors, and they offer locations here in Beverly, predominantly in Boston, face-to-face, and then online. And so they offer, and they're kind of the conduit to different degree programs. So they're interfacing with several of the schools across campuses. And so out of the 7 schools that we have, they're interfacing with at least 3 of them. And those are the courses that they offer. So they're involved in any of the external reviews. Prior to my arrival, they had their own schedule for conducting program reviews for any of the degrees that they offer. So some of the challenge that I faced in this creating a culture of assessment at Endicott. It's a new assessment approach. And I say that in that what I'm bringing to the table. They've been doing assessment work for the better part of 15 years at this campus. We've got some great historical data. Some groundbreaking work has been done here. One of the other aspects of major reorganizations that has taken place, like I said, in 2 years that I've been here, I've seen 2 major reorganizations, and then new administration, and we'll talk about each one of those. So one of the challenges that I faced was coming into a program that literally the previous assessment was really done by a little bit of with the faculty where they would collect the artifacts and do the scoring, but the interpretation and the decisions to make any adjustments were really at the senior level, dean level, assistant dean level, chair level. And even at the grad level, when I first came in, the previous director was assisting with some of the assessment work and literally going in, scrubbing the data. And I came in and I'm like, wow, we have so much work to do, but yet I can't be that deep in the weeds. And having come from faculty, my big thing was as soon as I walked in the door, and even during my interview process, I had said that the assessment has to live in the hands of the faculty. They have faculty, the primacy over the curriculum, and therefore that would be my mantra moving forward. So one of the things that we did was change and evolve this position. And as I mentioned, went from institutional planning and assessment. I work directly in provost's office or under the provost's office. And so I report directly to the associate provost and a dotted line to the actual provost. I also chair the Institutional Assessment Committee. It had been a long-standing committee on paper. It had not been active in several years. And so when I came on board, we ensured that we would be actively meeting. I created a web page that would house our meeting minutes, our agenda, and resources for our faculty. In the policies and procedures for the college, it actually details that 3 members from the collective bargaining agreement would be elected and to serve on the committee. So we actually have 3 members from the union that are elected each year and join the committee. And then we also have student services and other areas across campus. So we kind of restructured the assessment committee. So that's been a huge change. And in addition, we went from having 2 members of the union on the committee, and we increased that to 3. And we have deans on it. We have associate deans. So we have a pretty good mix, and we meet monthly. We looked at the external program review process. We currently do it every 7 years, and I actually have been advocating to move that to more of a 5-year, given the very fluid landscape of higher ed. I think going every 7 years is a long stretch, and so we're actually under review right now for potentially moving that to a 5-year process. The big piece for me was moving. I quickly observed that the faculty would do the legwork, if you will, collect the artifacts, score them, and then it was, the typical closing of the loop, and they just did not feel they had a voice in it and a process, and because that generally took place over the summer. And so one of the pieces I've worked very hard about is involving the faculty and making sure that they have the voice. And I've actually set up, instead of expanding my position to have additional full-time people, I've actually put it back onto each of the schools to have their own assessment liaisons. And then I meet with the individual school liaisons on curriculum mapping, on new courses, anything to involve assessment. And that's to just make sure that we're using a consistent process across the institution. So far, that's been working very well. It keeps me hopping. It keeps me moving between the different schools with their projects. I had mentioned about the web page that we created and posting all of our meeting minutes and so forth. In addition, I'm doing campus-wide training, and we've hired, like for example, before this academic year, we hired Peggy Mackey to come in and conduct a half-day sessions for deans, assistant deans, the director of graduate programs, and any faculty that wanted to participate. Because it was held during the summer, we could not require the faculty to participate. And I believe we had over 50 plus people, and that's the room was full. We couldn't take anybody else. So they're starting to see where things are changing for the better for assessment. The reorganization, our graduate programs function independently. They were a separate silo. And right after I arrived, I'm talking within a month of my arrival, I knew it was coming. They had said it would be 6 months to a year. Unfortunately, it happened a month afterwards, and they placed each of the grad programs under the respective schools. So, for example, the MBA program ended up being under the business school, and the dean of the business school is now responsible for the MBA program. So that was a major shift. We ended up with 7 schools, and each school, as I worked with them, was required last year to create their own mission statement, which was a feat in itself. I think the nursing program, School of Nursing, they had a mission statement, but most of our other schools did not. And so I worked most of last year with the faculty and the administration on creating mission statements for the individual schools. Again, one of the pieces was where everyone fit in within this reorganization and to streamline the process of assessment. And that my job was not to go in and do the assessment, but rather to ensure that we're using a consistent process. New administration, and as you can imagine, the college, unfortunately, we had a president about 3.5, 4 years ago who had a medical emergency and died unexpectedly. And so we ended up with a new president 3 years ago. He is from from New Hampshire, so in the area, so he was familiar with the college. We hired and created a new provost position, and she came from outside the area, and that was about 1.5 years ago. My position went from the graduate program to a 2-year, and I arrived, like I said, about 2.5 years ago. We just created a Center for Excellence in Teaching. It's a dean's level position, and that was 6 months ago. All of the positions have come from outside of the organization. So as you can imagine, that has some challenges in itself. So one of the ways that I came about this was looking at it and saying, how do I build the capacity? I need to get other people energized. How am I going to get them involved in this process? And so one of the pieces I looked at was the capacity building framework. The organizational development, making sure that it's one voice. And so, for example, I'm now one voice. I created a 15-minute video on curriculum mapping, and I put it on a private YouTube channel, and I put it on our website so that I can direct faculty and staff to that. So it's a primer. They get an idea of what curriculum mapping is, because a lot of faculty aren't responsible for doing curriculum mapping. Maybe they've done it 5 years ago. Maybe they've never done it. So this is a nice primer. It's one voice. I'm making sure that it's across the campus. So there's a lot that I'm trying to do with open, honest, respectful communication. The web page is one example. The faculty and staff development with hiring people from the outside to come in. I'm doing presentations. I'm actually going to faculty meetings, school meetings, to meet with the faculty to discuss, hey, you're looking at redoing a couple courses or looking at program outcomes. Here's some of the recommendations. I always leave it in the form of a question. Does this work? Does this still continue to work today? Because I want to drive the faculty to make the decision. It serves no purpose for me to go through program outcomes or course outcomes and make all the edits and say, okay, this is how it should be worded. I want to empower them to make that. And that has been very helpful. The resource allocation, again, whether you're doing this external program review, the reality is there's got to be capital money available for new courses, new equipment, maybe faculty, whatever it may be. Nothing worse than to create and go out, build an external program review only to find that there's no resources and no money available to implement all the changes that were recommended. So my big mantra with the administration is we've got to do these, and our accrediting body says we have to, and it's going to make our curriculum better and the learning for the students, but we're going to need money to do it. And I realize not everything can be done 6 months later. So resource allocation, I go out and beg, borrow, and steal as much as I can. Creating partnerships, and that's across the campus, whether it's for the public safety group, the library. I float all between the different groups on campus, and it's about building that partnership and realizing that this is not, assessment isn't about the individual, it's more about the program and about how students are actually learning. The leadership in taking, that's another piece with my piece is that yes, assessment is important. I enjoy it, I love it, but the reality is nobody's going to die from a report that isn't filed at 5 p.m. today. And I try to create somewhat of a stress-free environment. And yes, there are some faculty and some administrators that take that to the extreme, but I don't want to create an environment where I'm forcing people and holding their feet to the fire that they have to do this. If they don't do it, I'm going to go to the provost. And so I guess it would be kind of a laissez-faire leadership in a sense. It works for me, but I tend to get more involvement and more engagement from those that I've worked with. So one of the things I look at is I tell the faculty and the administration when I'm coming in is that I'm kind of your coach, your mentor, your cheerleader. I'm just not there to do your assessment work, plain and simple. And that kind of relieves a lot of the stress and anxiety because one, I'm an outsider. I get that. Even at 2 years now, I'm the outsider. And so when they realize that I'm coming in and I'm giving ideas, thoughts, suggestions, ultimately the decision is theirs. And so that has worked wonderful. And having them back away and look at it as an institution rather than just their little program has helped immensely. As I had mentioned, I'm a big one about open, honest, respectful communication. And while I was looking at our reporting process, we had historically an annual report that the deans of each of the schools would fill out for assessment and give to the provost. I want to say it was by the end of May, it might have been by the end of June, every year. And I asked, where do these go? What happens to them? Who follows up? And that dreaded phrase, closing the loop. And that's where we were falling short. And because these reports were prepared by the deans, there was really no follow-up when closing a loop on and taking action on the decisions that were made. And so we created a reporting system that actually has 3 touch points. And those 3 touch points are essentially allows me to make contact with the individual deans at 3 different points. It also allows the assessment committee to look at the identified outcomes and assessment tools that each school is using, again, to ensure some level of consistency across the institution. And that has been very helpful. But where I talk about the open, honest communication was, it looked good on paper, it looked practical in my head, and I had the due date again, the end of June. And with discussing it with some of the faculty, they were like, well, that's all well and good, but we're not around during the summer. It would make it more beneficial to move the due date of the final piece and planning ahead to the end of September, early part of October, so we can come back and we can reflect on that data and make decisions as to what we need to do. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I had created another problem that I was trying to solve. I just created another one. So we adjusted that, and that has worked out very well. So those 3 touch points, the faculty by contract, by their collective bargaining agreement, still require them to play an active role with collecting artifacts and scoring, assessment. We call it assessment day, when they all gather and do the scoring and so forth, and report the findings to the dean of the school. They generally are not making any adjustments at that point. As you can imagine, it's at the end of the summer. All the grades have been submitted. The only thing they want to do is get out and enjoy the nice weather. So we push that final phase off till the end of September, when they come back and they have an opportunity to really reflect on the data and make appropriate decisions that they deemed going forward. And I have to tell you, it was a little interesting to implement this change, but it's been very beneficial. So working as a cheerleader, again, it's to nudge, prod, encourage people that we can do this. There's some skepticism at first that, like, why is he involving us? Why is he giving us all this data? Why is he asking us of input? And I think once they realized that I was using some of their content and their concerns to grow the program, and simple things, they're now coming to me and going, hey, we're using this assessment tool. We've always used it, but it just doesn't seem to work anymore. I'm like, okay, let's change it. Like, if it doesn't work, then don't keep using it. They're like, oh, but we've collected all this data. And I'm like, it's fine. But if the what you're trying to collect and what you're using isn't working, then why continue to use it? And so it's like this burden has been relieved of me saying, yes, let's change it. Let's do this. And just having the faith of the faculty that I can look at some of their comprehensive exams and say, wow, there's a lot of multiple choice questions. This just looks like it came out of the back of the book. Could we maybe offer a case study? Could we do a scenario and have a couple questions and so forth? So working as a cheerleader and as a resource has worked out tremendously. Some of the critics, let's be honest, every organization, every school that I worked at, and there's been several, there's always the critic. And one of the things I've come to realize, I want to stay close to that critic. I want to know why they think this won't work. Why are they against X, Y, and Z? And I will tell you, more often than not, if you can get over your own personal ego with, the Debbie Downers, the Debbie, naysayers, and you actually listen and can get to some root cause of why this individual is being the way they are, it will make the program run better than you expected. And like I said, you may be trying to do something that was tried here 5 years ago. Okay, well, why? Why did it not work 5 years ago? What are we going to do different this time that will ensure that it's going to be different, and why will it be different? Working as a community and just having that open, honest conversation. I've gone in front of the full faculty senate for different projects and information. And I just find that if you can take a few hits, you know, up in front of your colleagues, and they know that you're trying your best and that you're not trying to do anything quiet or pushing something down their throat, that you're asking for their input, use it. Don't just go out and ask for the input, but actually use their input. When they see that you're actually using that, that's when you end up with people, you know, backing you. Try to channel the criticism and so forth. It's part of the job. I wish I could tell you that, you know, I look at my job with rosy lenses, and that every day is wonderful. There are days that I pull my hair out when I leave, and I wonder if I am making a difference. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm moving the ball, and that's what counts. And it's about student learning. My work to build and change a culture of assessment here. I would be remiss if I didn't say that prior to my arrival, I think assessment was viewed as more of an accreditation issue. We did assessment for accreditation, for accountability. And when I came in, one of the mantras that I'm gone with is assessment is about student learning. And that's what I repeat. If I say it once, I say it 1,000 times. And that's what I want the faculty to know, is that we're doing this about student learning. If we do it and do it well, then it will fall in line with our accreditors and our secondary accrediting agencies. The assessment coach, listening, so important. And you know, I've worked for a couple different institutions here in Massachusetts. I'd like to think that I've seen a few things, but I also realize that my job here is not to convert or change or make this institution like one of the others that I've worked for. So very often you will not hear me speak of, well, this is the way that Granite State College did, and this is the way we should do it here. I always temper those conversations with, oh, here's one example and here's another. I always try to give 2 examples. So, and I listen. If I'm not seeing people participating, I'll reach out. Respond thoughtfully, and not to blush off or blow off anybody, but think about it. And some of those emails, I may pause and wait. I might write a response and wait till the next day to reread it before I hit the send button, because I want to think it through, because there's always a ripple effect on a lot of these decisions that I make. And as I kind of touched on prior, resist imposing your own solutions. I don't want to be the know-it-all. I don't want to walk in and say, okay, this is the way you're going to do it. This is the way such and such a college did it. This is the way you're going to do it. I want them to feel that they have a voice, they have a say, and that this is their assessment process. If they believe and feel that they're part of that process, it's going to be well received. Closing the loop with the program reviews, holding departments accountable, making sure that we go back. 2 years ago when I arrived, we were just finishing up the criminal justice one. And even to now, just a couple of weeks ago, I touched bases with the chair of the criminal justice program, just to say, hey, how are we on this? Where are we at? And that's part of that closing the process. So when you do an external program review, don't just put it up on the shelf, forget about it. Somebody needs to be responsible, like what have we accomplished? What do we need to work on now? Determine the effectiveness of the program. That's a shared process. And again, we're just in the process of the business school external program review. And I just sent, we involve our union president and vice president to meet with our reviewers. And I set it up, and then I got reflecting on it on that drive home. And the next morning I wrote back and I said, geez, after reflecting on this, I know we've always done it. We've always included the union in this process, but is this the best use of your time and the reviewer's time? And I said, very candidly, be honest. If you think this is a waste of your time, tell me. Or if you think it would be better served if we involve the executive board, let me know. And so I'm always looking to enhance the program. Just because we've done it before X, Y, and Z doesn't mean we continue to do it. So I think I'm building that rapport across the campus where people feel comfortable with approaching me with new ideas or changes. Again, the impact that the organization has on that program review, and whether it's, we had an external review and they pretty much came in and said, your curriculum needs to just be revamped totally. And that's going to be a multi-year process. And the faculty knew it. That was half the battle. The faculty knew it. And the external reviewers confirmed it. And now we chart a course of how are we going to go about that. Again, it's the faculty own the curriculum. And so all I'm doing is working with the faculty on the assessment pieces, the outcome piece, but ultimately it's their decision what the courses are named, what's going to be covered. And that is a slow process, but it's a direct impact to that external review. The actions taken and when. Immediately after the external reviewers send us the report, and the dean, the department heads, and myself, the provost, have time to review it, we schedule a follow-up. And generally what we're looking for with the dean and the chairs is a timeline of, okay, let's handpick, here are the recommendations from the reviewers, when and where, how we're going to achieve these. And we let them decide, again, if it's adding more faculty, that's going to be a multi-year process and so forth. Making curriculum changes, or maybe making, streamlining the application process, something like that. Those things might be what I refer to as low-hanging fruit. You can change it probably within the next 6 months. Some of the stuff we came across, faculty over a period of time create their own inner workings of a course, and we realized that the course was no longer being taught the way it was intended, and some of the content was not being covered. That's an immediate fix. And so ultimately, closing that loop, we make sure some of the stuff can be done immediately, that just, you discover it, and other stuff is going to be long-term. In closing, I'd like to go through some of the things that worked and what didn't work for us. The ultimate challenge is knowing how to act as a coach, a cheerleader, and director all at once. My job, I try to walk around with a smile. I laugh. I had a previous job that was very intense with stress. And so, as I joke, nobody dies in assessment. And all my colleagues know what that is in reference to. And so I try to approach it as not being that stressor for other people, and that we'll get through this. Flexibility and understanding has to be part of it. There's not too many days I walk out of here that I'm at a high stress level, anxious, angry, want to quit my job. I love what I do. This is a second career. My boss knows it, and I love what I do. And that shows through my work and the people that I interact with. Building on what has already been established here at this college, I respect that. I don't speak ill of any of the foundational work that has been done. I'm a steward here in the assessment. I probably have maybe 4 more years before I retire. My My boss knows that, the administration knows that. So I'm just a steward of the position, and then it will be time for someone else new to come in and have their bright ideas as to how assessment should best be performed. Let me tell you, to survive, I got to tell you, keep track of the small wins and the large successes. Brag about it, tell people about it, reiterate it, repeat it. I'm constantly talking about the wonderful things, no matter how big or how small. If I'm moving that assessment ball forward just inches, I'm talking about it. And that builds energy in that culture. Building the assessment resource center is very helpful, and reorganizing of the institutional assessment committee, because I now have people from outside of the academics assisting with this, and realize the importance of it. Having a place to go to look for information, such as the curriculum mapping. It's so nice when someone reaches out to me. I'm like, oh, here's the link. Just, watch this video. This will give you a 15-minute synopsis of what curriculum mapping is, and then I'll plan to meet with you and the faculty. Driving the institution, build a positive assessment relationship. And again, I don't go in guns blazing. I don't use the fact that I work under the provost's office, and there are times that I report to my boss, and I've been slow with some of the reporting and so forth. And it's like, she's like, do you want me to step in? I'm like, no, I've got this. And I use that very judiciously in that process. And that's how for me personally, that's how I've come a long ways in the 2 years working here. Communicate effectively. Again, I tend to be a big communicator, whether it's verbally or in writing. Sometimes I'm just touching base for the heck of touching base. There's other times I'm gently nodding and pushing and reminding you, you have papers, assignments that are due for me, or work that we need to get done. Bottom line, keep the leadership simple. Don't make this a complicated process. And that's one of the things I've tried to do, is what will work best for this institution at this point in time. We've looked at a lot of different models. I've tried to take the best of all. And like I said, during our reorganization, one of the pieces was, whether to make my area larger. And I said, you know what, as a fire chief, I was in charge of full-time employees 24/7, 365 days a year. A lot of resources went to managing people. I said, I'd rather manage a project. And so that's where we really focused on each of the schools having assessment liaison teams. And now I have contact people. So I don't even have to deal directly with the deans of each of the schools. They have their own team that deals with the assessment. So it's helped streamline it and take one more thing off of the plate of the individual teams. This is my contact information at Endicott College, my phone number, my email. I can also be found on LinkedIn.